You know, when you walk into a library, there's that feeling, all that knowledge just there.
That sense of possibility.
Yeah, or like seeing a fire station, you feel safer, right?
Yeah,
Protected.
absolutely. Tangible infrastructure for tangible needs.
It gets you thinking, though. What if the places around us, our cities, were actually designed to spark ideas? To, fuel
Design.
creativity?
It's a really compelling question. We
Right.
build infrastructure for learning, for safety, health, transport.
Hmm.
Why not for imagination itself? It's the engine for so much, isn't it?
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today, this whole concept of an infrastructure of imagination.
Ooh, I like that term.
Right. Think physical spaces, maybe even how organizations are structured, all geared towards nurturing innovation. And for our listeners who like getting up to speed on big ideas quickly, we're exploring this. We've got this fascinating collection. We're calling it our creative text, plus insights on abundance, mindfulness, even some ancient wisdom.
And it really drills down into some key questions. Like the prompt mentioned, a city has libraries and fire stations. Why not idea stations?
Yes. Or that other one, could an abandoned post office, a place that used to move physical messages, become something new, like a publishing house or an idea lab?
That's such a vivid image.
In our creative text, it's the main source here. It looks at art hubs, how they work, what makes them succeed or fail. It touches on AI, which is, well, a whole other conversation almost.
Definitely relevant, though.
And the pros of creativity, the sort of hidden conditions needed. But then it also has these really raw transcripts from YouTube creators talking about feeling hopeless, the pressure to monetize everything.
Which is such a stark contrast, isn't it? You have the potential, the art hubs, the AI possibilities, the ideal conditions, and then the reality check from those transcripts.
Exactly, the struggle.
And that gap, that tension, really highlights why thinking about a dedicated infrastructure of imagination feels so necessary now.
Okay, let's make this more concrete then. Libraries store knowledge, fire stations protect physical safety. What's the equivalent for our creative well-being? What would these idea stations actually do?
Well, imagine a space designed not just for consuming information like a library or reacting to emergencies like a fire station, but specifically for generating new ideas.
Actively generating.
Yes.
Hmm.
Think flexible spaces,
Mm.
quiet zones for deep focus, maybe open areas for buzzing collaboration, access to diverse resources, not just books, but maybe prototyping tools, VR setups,
Ooh, VR for
why
ideas.
not? And crucially, connections,
Hmm.
mentors, experts, people from different fields bumping into each other.
So it's more than just a building, it's a whole curated ecosystem. Now, that idea of repurposing the post office becoming an idea lab, why is that so compelling beyond just, using an empty building?
There's a practical side, sure, sustainability, maybe cost, and old buildings have character, right?
Yeah.
A history. But the symbolism is huge. A post office moved information physically, letters, packages, reimagining it as a hub for creating and sharing ideas, books, digital stuff, projects. It speaks to how communication evolves.
It's like embedding the story of progress into the building itself.
Exactly. Taking the past and giving it a future focused on thought and creation.
Okay, so connecting this to the creative text, it mentions art hubs. They kind of already are infrastructures for creativity, aren't they? What can we learn from them, good and bad, for these broader idea stations?
Art hubs are great models in many ways. They provide dedicated space studios, galleries, stages. Crucially, they foster community. Artists connect, critique, support each other.
That peer network feels vital.
Absolutely. And they act as bridges connecting artists to audiences, funding, resources. So those core elements, space, community, access, definitely apply to idea stations too.
But what are the pitfalls? What should we watch out for?
Well, art hubs can struggle, right? Funding is often precarious. Accessibility can be an issue. Who gets to participate? Are they truly diverse? And sometimes they can become a bit insular, echo chambers.
Right, need to avoid becoming closed off. So, take the good bits, learn from the challenges. Okay, now, AI. Our
Right.
creative text brings it up. How could AI fit into this infrastructure of imagination? It sounds a bit sci-fi, maybe.
It does, but think of AI less as a replacement and more as a collaborator or a catalyst.
Okay, how so?
Imagine AI analyzing massive amounts of data and spotting connections we'd miss, linking totally unrelated fields to spark a new idea.
Like a superpowered brainstorming partner.
Sort of. Or AI generating unusual prompts to push us out of our usual thinking patterns. Maybe even handling the grunt work of research so humans can focus on the creative leaps.
That could free up a lot of mental energy.
For sure. Now, obviously, there are big questions around ethics, authorship, all that. But the potential to augment human creativity is definitely there. It's not about AI taking over, it's about it giving us new angles.
Got it. A tool, not a replacement. Now, the text also mentions the pros of creativity. What's that about? What are those essential conditions for creativity?
The pros, as we're interpreting it, refers to the often invisible background stuff that lets creativity happen, like dedicated time, real uninterrupted time.
Which is so rare these days.
Exactly. And environments that help you focus, minimize distractions. Plus, crucially, psychological safety, feeling okay to try things, fail, experiment without being judged.
That freedom to mess up.
Yes. And this lines up with things we see elsewhere, like in mindfulness practices being present-focused, or the Zen idea of a beginner's mind being open.
So an infrastructure of imagination needs to build that in.
Absolutely. Design spaces for quiet work. Foster a culture where experimentation is cheered, not feared. Maybe even offer resources on focused techniques, mindfulness, create that fertile ground.
A fertile ground. But then the creative text throws in that harsh reality of those transcripts about hopelessness, the endless monetization pressure from online platforms. That sounds like the opposite of fertile ground.
It really is. That constant chase for views, for virality, the feeling that every creative spark must lead to cash. It can be crushing. Burnout, feeling like you're not good enough.
So how does our infrastructure of imagination fight back against that? Can it?
I think it has to. It could be an alternative ecosystem,
Yeah.
a place where the main goal isn't just measurable output, but exploration, discovery.
Less focus on metrics.
Yes. Build community programs that fight the isolation creators often feel. Value the process, the learning, the intrinsic motivation, the joy of making something just because you want to. Help people reconnect with why they create, separate from immediate financial gain or validation.
Right, shifting the focus back inward, away from just the external pressures, which connects nicely to the ideas of abundance and some of our other sources, like the workbooks on abundance and prosperity consciousness. Can we design these spaces to actually cultivate an abundance mindset for ideas?
Definitely. A key part of that mindset is believing there's enough to go around, right? Enough ideas, enough potential. So an infrastructure of imagination embodies that through collaboration, sharing ideas freely, building on each other's work, not hoarding.
Less competition, more co-creation.
Precisely. Making resources easily available, focusing on collective growth. And that idea from prosperity consciousness about visualization, these spaces could encourage that too. Help people envision their goals, believe in their own potential, actively nurture that sense of plenty.
Wow, the environment itself helping you believe in creative limitlessness, that's powerful. We also looked at material on shifting beliefs about money and abundance. How could these places help people detach the value of their ideas from immediate profit?
That source encourages challenging our assumptions about worth, especially tied to money. So these idea stations could be safe spaces to do exactly that for creative work. Workshops, peer groups, mentoring, all focused on recognizing the inherent value of an idea, whether it sells tomorrow or not.
So it's okay to explore things that might not have an obvious market value right away.
Exactly. It's about decoupling creativity from just being a commodity, valuing the exploration itself.
That feels healthier. The Abundance Workbook also mentions inner focus, the spirit self, as the source of prosperity. Can these idea stations actually encourage that deeper connection?
I think the design and the whole ethos could. Think quiet zones for reflection, maybe resources for mindfulness like we discussed. The goal is fostering self-trust, helping people recognize their own innate capacity as the wellspring of ideas.
Shifting focus inward again.
Yes, away from constantly seeking external validation, helping people tap into that spirit self, their core creative source.
And thinking about collaboration again, I Ching talks about harmony, how working well with supporters gives an advantage. Can these infrastructures be designed to build that harmony?
For sure. Intentional design of collaborative zones, facilitating projects that cross disciplines, creating mentorship opportunities, it all builds towards that harmony. Bringing diverse people together sparks unexpected synergies.
That collective energy.
Yeah, where everyone learns from each other, supports each other, the outcomes are just richer.
It sounds amazing. It also connects to that Zen idea. We do not exist for the sake of something else. We exist for the sake of ourselves. Can these spaces help people create just for the sake of creating?
That's a core aim, I think. By valuing the process, the exploration, and providing support that isn't tied only to success, these places embody that principle. The focus shifts to the intrinsic joy of it.
freeing people from always needing an external justification.
Exactly, letting them follow their curiosity, find the inherent reward in bringing ideas to life.
And finally, that point about awakening to one's true nature from the mindfulness source. Could these spaces actually help with that kind of self-discovery, letting creativity flow more freely?
I genuinely believe so. By providing that space quiet, connected, free from judgment, they remove a lot of the usual noise and pressure. That calm, supportive environment can be exactly what people need to connect with themselves, quiet the inner critic, and let their unique creativity emerge.
So, pulling it all together, this infrastructure of imagination, drawing on our creative text, and these wider ideas of abundance, mindfulness, collaboration, it really could be transformative, couldn't it?
It feels like it.
Yeah.
Actively building environments to nurture creativity, foster possibility, combat that hopelessness, and monetization-only focus. It points towards a much richer creative landscape.
For individuals and for society.
Exactly. By intentionally designing these systems, the spaces, the communities, the mindset, we could unlock so much potential. Innovation, problem solving, human growth. It's profound.
So let's loop back to those first questions. Buildings for thinking, a department of brainstorming. After this dive, they don't seem so whimsical anymore, do they?
Not at all. We've sketched out how physical places and organizational structures could genuinely cultivate creativity, just like we do for other essential services.
And critically, how they could counter those negative pressures we talked about, hopelessness, the money chase, and instead foster abundance and self-discovery.
And think beyond just the arts. Science, tech, social change, any field needing creative solutions could benefit hugely.
It's a really exciting prospect. So a final thought for our listeners. Imagine having that kind of space or system readily available to you in your town, your workplace. What ideas might flourish then? What problems could you tackle differently? What might you discover about your own creative potential?
And maybe look around too. What seeds of this infrastructure already exist in your life? A local makerspace, a library program, a supportive group of colleagues. How could you help those seeds grow?
Yeah, it's an ongoing conversation, really, an invitation to think about how we can all contribute, even in small ways, to building this infrastructure of imagination, because the potential impact for ourselves and our communities, well, it's huge. Really exciting stuff to think about.